Today I'm joined by someone who's helping shape the future of agriculture right from the field level, where research meets reality. Lewis Baarda is the research manager at Farming Smarter, a leader in bringing science, innovation, and collaboration directly to producers. We've had some great conversations in the past about what modern day farming really looks like and what it's going to take to make sustainability not just a goal, but a way of operating. Lewis, welcome to Retaining Purpose.
Glad to be here.
Yeah, so Lewis, before we get going, Farming Smarter, I'd like you to just tell us a little bit about what Farming Smarter is. You're kind of at, obviously, the leading edge of research in an industry that is kind of viewed as typically very traditional. So what is Farming Smarter?
Yeah, well, I'm going to break the mold here right away. You've asked me to be, focus and not be too broad, but Farming Smarter does a lot of things. So I'll be as concise as I can, but we're a not-for-profit research organization, crop research organization. So we're located just outside of Lethbridge, Alberta, and basically our motto is we change the way people farm. So anything to do with crop production, we've got our fingers in it, and we're trying to improve things. And there's a lot that has to happen to make that all come together. We've got a number of tools that we use. So we've got 3 major research programs. We'll work with, private industry, so companies that have products and technologies that they want to develop and fine-tune, improve the value of. We get a lot of public grants or philanthropic organizations supporting our work to do some ground-level agronomy work. So we're learning how to grow new crops or how to be more efficient with fertilizer, what kind of seeders to use. And then another piece of it that I do quite a bit of is working with farmers on their farms. So it's things like, we've got this new technology. How do we adapt it to sort of fit Southern Alberta, Medicine Hat or Lethbridge or a farm wherever that has a specific cropping system, specific equipment, specific environmental conditions, et cetera, et cetera. How do we make sure that we can translate the benefits of this technology practice into this operation? So that in a nutshell is what we do. And the other big side of it is our what we call our knowledge and network program. So that's where we take everything we learn and we share it with the industry through things like this, conversations with folks like yourself. We've got a series of events every year. So our goal is to have that discourse with folks from the industry, with farmers, and make sure we're learning together and deciding what to research next and what to change and what the opportunities are. Yeah,
and that's something you and I were just talking about right before we came in here was, when you're dealing with cutting edge things or new things, what's viewed as new, collaboration in that space will actually help move the needle a heck of a lot quicker than people working in their own individual silos, right?
Yep.
So if you were to look at what farming is, the average person would view farming as, right? And with what you see out there today, what would be a quick little thing that you could tell the average person and say, this is where we're going. This is where this industry is headed.
I think to start, I think the average person really doesn't know a lot about agriculture. Our world's changed, right? There used to be a time where everybody was related to somebody who was on the farm, right? I think we all kind of most of us have rural roots to some degree, but we've got a few generations in there. So there's people that have no connection to the farm or to where their food might come from. And so we put on an event every year. Alberta has what's called Open Farm Days, and it's a province-wide initiative. And basically it's about connecting the public to agriculture and what happens. And it's one of our most well-attended events at Farming Smarter. And the first year we did it 7 or 8 years ago, I prepared this whole thing on soil sensors and soil texture and all this stuff. And I was really proud of what I had put together. And
scientist in you came out.
That's right. That's right. And then people came out and their questions were like just levels back from what I had prepared. And that was kind of just raise the awareness of just how little people know about agriculture. And sometimes I think ag gets a bit of a bad rap for certain things, and there's just a lot of really good context behind why we do things the way we do. And I think people also aren't aware at how much, like you mentioned, we're pushing the envelope. Like farmers are innovators, and things change so fast that some of the things I might have been working on 10 years ago aren't even relevant or are just so widely adopted that they don't require a lot of work anymore.
Yeah, and it is moving that quickly, and it's funny because for the layman out there, it's easy to see. I was just actually driving back here, and you see the big combine driving down the highway right now, right? And you're looking at $1 million, and the technology of that equipment has moved so quickly. And I think we often don't realize that while the technology on that side has moved, so has it moved on the agronomic side of things, right?
Yeah.
And, is a lot of that because of the fact that, number one, climate change. I think we can all agree that, we're going to leave the background to belief or not belief, but it is changing, and it has changed, right? And it will continue to change, and is a lot of what you do because of the fact that it is getting currently in our current state harder to grow good crops.
That's a tough question to answer. I think climate is changing, but I also think our production systems are changing. So we have different practices than we did 20 years ago. We're doing a lot less tillage. We have more diverse rotations. We have different management practices. We have different genetics. We have the crops we grow are more resilient to heat. They're more resilient to shorter seasons. So there's all these kind of things that fit into it. So when you talk about sustainability, it's almost more resilience. Like, how do we build a system that can withstand pressures from all different directions? Climate change may be one, but there's probably other ones. Market influences, right? We've got this global commodities market, and a disagreement with China or our neighbors to the south can kind of really little bit of that going on now. Yeah, exactly. And it can really change things on the ground as far as, okay, we've got this rotation, and so a rotation is, the sequence of crops that you might plant. Yep. We've got this all planned out, but now there's economic pressures that are going to change that. But now the farmer has to go back and say, what are the implications for disease transmission through my fields, or soil protection, or all these other things, right? So there's just so much to balance, and I think a resilient system has to keep pushing boundaries, keep asking questions, keep trying new things to have as many opportunities for profitability as possible.
Oh, for sure. Are farmers happy right now?
Are farmers ever happy? I mean, now it's middle of October. It's probably a good time to ask that on a sort of localized scale. So I think overall there was pretty good crops this year, more rain than we've had in a while.
It was. Yeah.
From that standpoint, farmers are happy. Are they content? Never. And I think that's why there's so much innovation that happens in the industry.
Which is great. I don't think you want content anything in any industry, right? If you're content, it means you're just typically going to be lazy, and you're going to default to doing those things you've always done because it's just the easy way to do it. So content breeds complacency in my mind. So I love hearing that, there's more intentionality behind what, maybe is going on right now. And are you seeing, you did touch quickly on, kind of the family farming side of things, right? Yep. And there are still a lot of family farms out there. Yep. Are you seeing generational differences now between, dad did it this way, grandpa did it that way, but now you're getting into this next generation where technology is way more influenced in their lives? Are you starting to see a shift?
Yeah, I mean, that, again, tough to answer. There's all the contexts are different in different places, but it's always changing, right? And I think it can be easy to kind of, slip into that paradigm of this generation did it this way, this did it this way, this did it this way, but it's an evolution. And I think for those that have spent their careers on it, that have, a few dozen more years than I have under their belt, they've seen some of those changes and say, wow, like, we used to do this all the time, and now we don't even think about doing these kind of practices. So I think I see curiosity from multiple generations, which is nice to see. So, when at our events or different ag shows, there's a range, and it's always really nice to see the young people there that are, at the front of their careers and learning things and being curious and figuring things out. But it's not just them. I think everybody's in there and has their own piece to bring to the table as far as change.
What they want to see kind of going forward.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
And you get those different mindsets coming together because they're, at the end of the day, there's still so much to learn. Yeah, from what has been done over the decades, right? Well,
and I think part of it is, your family farm isn't just your family farm anymore, right? Ag is so diverse and there's so many skill sets involved that you bring in people, either it's consultants or agronomists or specialized expertise as part of your staff for things like water management or, crop scouting or even technology or mechanics. Like, there's all these kind of things. So it's kind of hard to say this generation or that. I think it's like farms are bringing in experts from all different sectors of the economy and industry and saying, hey, like, we want you in-house because we have a need for this.
Yeah, we want to maximize not only what we're getting out of the seeds that we're buying, but out of the ground we're growing it in. And at the end of the day, maximize, obviously, profits. Nobody's going to do this for the health and well-being, right?
Yeah, that's right.
What does a conversation on food security look like? In your guys' world, like, is it something that gets discussed a lot?
I think there's undertones of that all the time, right? Like, I think food security, I'm kind of thinking about how to frame this, but we often hear this sort of the line like, hey, we have to grow enough food to feed the world. And I don't think our issue is in production and our capacity to produce enough food. I think if we focused all our resources across the world on producing food, no problem. But food security is a bit of a different issue, right? I think a lot of insecurity or food insecurity is tied to, political things, right? Where there's political instability, or you've got different economic pressures. We grow a lot of crops that aren't for food. Cotton's a huge product around the world, right? Or even, some of the biodiesel or biofuels, things like that, right? So food security, it's an important thing, but I think a lot of that, we have a role to play in it, but really a lot of what we're doing in the research is to make our farms as profitable as possible.
Right.
And that does lead to more food security, but really I think a lot of the work in food security is more on the political stability and
getting it out side
it's like
of
the
things.
Bigger picture side thing. Yeah, exactly. It's like there's enough food. It's the distribution. Like, where is it? Who has it? Who has enough? And how do we get it to the places that need it?
Yeah, and that's where that's the arena you want to stay out of. That's for sure. So.
A lot of big questions there for sure.
A lot of big questions. So getting back to Farming Smarter. You're just outside Lethbridge, just west or east, pardon me. And so for those that don't know, Southern Alberta is one of the I think it is actually the largest irrigation agriculture sector in the entire country, is my understanding. I think from what I've heard, we have about 75% of the irrigated agriculture industry is in this corridor of Southern Alberta. Is most of your focus in the irrigated industry?
I think it's half and half. So we kind of serve the region. So we do historically a lot of rain-fed kind of agriculture, right? Soil conservation, those kinds of things. But because we are situated, like you said, like 2/3, 3/4 of the irrigation in the entire country is right here in Southern Alberta. So combining that with our kind of warm days and early springs, longer seasons than a lot of places on the prairies, we're growing crops that you can't anywhere else on the prairies, or there's very few places that you can. And the irrigation gives us mitigates risk, right? Because we're huge. So you can reliably grow things like seed canola, dry beans, potatoes, sugar beets, all these kind of things. So because we're in that region, we're starting to focus more and more on these specialty crops. And because the farmers we work with, they're expanding and they're trying new things.
Right.
They're asking us for information about these crops, right? So it's kind of that relationship to the farm kind of pushes us in a new direction and says, okay, maybe we've got to look at this, and maybe we've got to look at this a little bit. So
really, a lot of what in some instances, the way the farmers are going is kind of the way you go too, right? As a support mechanism of it. So what are you? What does that time frame look like? If a farmer was to say, "Hey, listen, I want to come in and I want to try X," and something that's never been grown down here or very rarely, what would it take for you to turn something around like that? And how do you go about actually starting to test? Will this be successful here?
Yeah. And there's a whole innovation system or innovation model that works with that, right? And we're just one piece to the puzzle. So what the kind of work we do would be called applied research.
Okay.
Which means we're sort of in that space between, basic science, which is, your genetics. They're developing new varieties of whatever crops, or they're coming up with new algorithms or technologies, whatever it is. And we're in that space that kind of bridges the gap between the inventors and the farm. So it's applied research. Still very scientific. We publish a lot of our work, but it's kind of that space in between. So for us, if somebody has something, we'll kind of take it and say, okay, we'll test this for a while. So if there's a new variety of wheat, for example, we'll do some tests. We'll try to do it usually we do it over a number of years, 3 or 4 years, a number of different locations. And that lets us cover a range of, environmental conditions, soil types, all these different things. And by the end, we put that all together and say, okay, we run some stats and say, are we confident that this is, making a difference or not? So,
sure.
Yeah. So it takes us a couple of years for sure to kind of have a good understanding of what the topic we're studying does. But honestly, 9 times out of 10, after that 3 or 4 years, we've got 6 other questions that we want to spend another 3 or 4 years to kind of fine tuning, right? So you always go in trying to answer something or solve something, but you often come up with as many questions as answers, and that kind of feeds back into that sort of iterative process of innovation.
Sure. And that is research, right?
Yeah,
that is,
exactly.
that is trying, I was just talking about this with Elliot actually about, with Grow, which is if there's no problems to solve, we have no business anymore. Same thing with you guys, right? Like you're looking for things you can solve, and that's an exciting space to be in. Even if sometimes, number one, you don't figure it out, or number two, you just come up with another 2, 3, 4 questions out of one solution.
Yeah. And a big part of it for us is kind of de-risking innovation for the farmers, right? So we the kind of research we do it in kind of small plots, right? So we're doing it on very small space. We've got a combine that's, a commercial combine would have maybe a 30 or 40 foot header, right? So that's the width of crop that it can harvest. Our width is about 2 meters. So it's very
a baby
small.
Combine.
Yeah, it's 3/4 of the price, but it's 10% of the size, right? So we can kind of do things. There's no economic risk to us trying something off the wall. And so then when we learn that, then it means farmers aren't doing that on commercial fields, compromising, their yields and their profitability. They've got a sense. It's kind of those bleeding edge farmers, right? You talk about crossing the chasm in sort of the innovation world. That's kind of like there's a small subset of people that take big risks to try to figure something out. And then once they figure it out through trial and error and a bunch of mistakes, then everybody else starts saying, oh, okay, now there's something there. Well, I think we can help take that risk off growers and off the industry by us trying all these crazy things and saying, hey, we've taken this through the funnel. This is the range of things we think are going to make sense at this point with the technology we're working with. I
actually love the way you frame that, which is de-risking it, and also the whole bleeding edge thing, right? Bleeding edge is a dangerous space to operate in. If it's, and with these farms, this isn't, their success as a farm is what puts food on their table, right?
That's it.
And it's their own inside food security. So when you're risking like branching out and trying these weird, crazy things, that's massive. And bleeding edge is a scary, scary place to be. So what is your team at Farming Smarter? Like, how many people do you get to work with? I'm sure it's got some seasonality to it, but what does it look like over there?
So I think we have 10 or 12 full-time staff right now.
Wow.
Which is crazy. I've been there a little over 10 years, and I think I was number 5 at the time. So we've doubled over 10 years or more than that. So we have 3 of us that manage research programs. Ken's our executive director, so he kind of oversees everything. Yeah. And then Jamie does our knowledge and network. So that's kind of all the communication side of things and making sure that all the research that we do kind of makes it out. We have a research scientist full-time and a couple more on retainers. So we're starting to get a little more specialized as we grow. And then summer comes around and we balloon to pretty close to 30 people with, another 15 or more summer students. So college, university students that spend their summers with us. And that's a lot of fun. It kind of changes the dynamics in a hurry when you've got a bunch of, 20, 25-year-olds and they're ambitious and ready to work and ready to learn. It's, it goes from slow to suddenly everybody's running in all different directions. And it's fun.
All over Southern Alberta. Yeah.
That's
and,
it.
and with that, when you get that big influx of those college university students, a lot of those are kind of doing that. That's what they're going into, right? Which is that research side of things, I'm sure.
What's been actually interesting about our students is we've had, I think, 2 or 3 in the last couple of years so students come to us and they don't always have ag degrees, right? Like they're in Southern Alberta and they like the research or they like the extension, or there's certain aspects of the job they're curious about. So we had one fellow was an engineer. He came from University of Guelph in Toronto and spent a couple of summers. He was on my crew. And after the first year, he said, you know what, Lewis, like, how do I get into ag? Like, is there space for me? So which is kind of cool. Cause I think, we talked about public perception and how public perceives ag. I think folks don't realize just how much there is in agriculture and the opportunity for disciplines outside of strictly like agriculture. There's chemistry, engineering, all these kind of other pieces. So that's really rewarding to kind of like see somebody's mind open to the opportunity that I get to live my day to day in and kind of make, chart their course a little differently because of a couple of summers with us.
Yeah, it's great because you're a mentor, right? And you're framing their view on something they were unfamiliar with. So, and then hearing that they want to get into this space is awesome. I always view agriculture as so unique. I spent 3 years in Bow Island, and Bow Island has a lot of really weird, crazy specialty crops, right? And that's kind of when the one farm there really branched into the mints, and they had some catnip, which led to a little bit of chaos in the community when it came back on their trucks. But yeah, it's wild. Just seeing that shift from such traditional methods to just really, really interesting, fun things. What are some of the projects you guys are working on right now? Or because you're kind of at the end of your season, obviously. So if you had to select like one or two projects this season that were like really eye-opening and led to a lot of excitement from what you found.
Yeah. Well, I mean, one that really comes to mind is we've been working on some irrigation work the last couple of years. So we're looking at, irrigation, the way growers irrigate is, growers are trying to piece together all the pieces for irrigation, right?
Sure.
So they're trying to figure out what's happening in my soil, what stage is my crop at, what does it need, and then how do I respond to that? So we're trying to put together a digital tool with some partners at University of British Columbia that's going to put all those pieces together. So it's going to say, have sensors in the soil that say, here's what's happening right now. We're going to use some crop growth models to identify what our crop needs are at different stages. And kind of close that loop, because all this stuff is happening, but nobody's really tied it all together in sort of a decision support tool that you could use on your phone and say, okay, this is what the status is here. Here's how we anticipate crop water needs and weather impacts on soil moisture to be over the next week and how we respond to it. So that one's been really cool. I've learned a lot kind of through that process for sure.
Data-driven decisions.
Yeah, that's right.
Which is really, that's kind of a term that we use very often, which is you can't manage what you don't measure, right? Yep. And that goes in all aspects, whether it's just irrigation, the soil chemistry or anything else. If you don't know what's going on there, how can you actually ever appropriately react to that? And then I think hopefully, and I'm correct me if I'm wrong, you end up with a point where you're not reacting. You set yourself up to be proactive, knowing that a series of events will take place, and this is where I should be going.
Yeah, you can plan around it. And one thing I've learned through doing trials on farm with growers is just the importance of logistics. So we can have all the best recommendations. We can have all the information we need to do all the proper choices, condition on that everything's going right. But logistics is just so important. The farms are huge. There's different people in different places at different times. So how do you manage it all, right? And sometimes it's easier just to make a decision, yes or no, than to actually do the background work to gather the information you need. So I think there's a lot of space in agriculture for decision support. And I think we know what we need to know in a lot of cases to make the right decision, but we don't have the time or even the bandwidth to properly synthesize, digest information, and pull the trigger on something. And this addresses that.
Well, one of the things that we've seen in the area of work that we're in on the irrigation side is somewhat of a reluctance to accept the fact that with the way irrigation is going, it isn't a process, or pardon me, it isn't a product anymore. It is a process, right? And anytime there's a process, you need somebody who manages that, right? And it isn't just this set it and forget it, we're going to move on. This is kind of the way we've always done it. And are you seeing that where if we stay in that irrigation space a minute, where farms are going, okay, I actually need someone specifically focusing on how we are watering our crops. One of the things I remember when I was sitting with you down in Lethbridge months ago was you had said how challenging it can be for these farmers, because a farm just isn't here anymore, right? The farm, you've got a crop here, you've got a crop there, you've got a crop 20 miles over that way. You're running pivots all over the place. They're not consistent in the infrastructure that they're running. And none of that communicates to themselves. So are you excited when you start to maybe see some of this stuff coming down the pipe from UBC and the work you guys are doing, that farms might actually be like, okay, if I have a tool, I'm actually going to invest in somebody to manage this tool?
Yeah, 100%. And I think to your point, a lot of farms have somebody, and their job is make sure everything gets enough water. And that's That's more than a person's full-time job in the summer. I mean,
For sure.
When we get, drought situations, I mean, we got to be running, we got to be moving. And I think what we're doing is giving the tools to be a little more efficient with it and a little more precise and like forward thinking, anticipating and just managing that resource a little better. And I think there's some opportunity there. And I think if we can build something, and this is probably beyond the scope of this particular project, but that can bring all those pieces together and give growers a dashboard or something that's going to give them the information they need.
Right.
You sit down, it's like your news feed every morning and you kind of know what's happening where. And I'm not ready to give things up fully to AI or anything at this point, but I think there's some opportunity to synthesize things and just present the information to the people that need to make the decision. I think there's something about, there's only so many good decisions you can make in a day before you have that fatigue and you're not making good choices anymore. And if we can kind of take some pressure off those decision makers, I think we're benefiting our industry.
Well, yeah, absolutely. And I think in particular with the water, there's no question that with the water levels the way they've been in recent years, the more we can do to, keep the water in the headwaters and the tailwaters, the better off we all are. And, one of the things, I was at the Bow River Basin Council AGM over the summer and there was a gentleman from the Bow River Irrigation District there, and one of the biggest things that he said is a focus is not only is water conservation from the standpoint of saving water, but it also opens up the ability to possibly farm more land as well, right?
Yep.
And is there still hope for expansion? Like, are we seeing more agricultural land start to find its way into the market?
Yeah, I think that question's a little fraught. There's a lot behind expanding irrigation acres. So one, you sort of need that, and I'm not the expert on this, but my understanding is you need to prove that you've got enough water to kind of, expand into those acres. And I think you have a board, so BRID or whatever.
SMRID or any of those.
Those irrigation districts, like they have to kind of come up with, okay, what makes sense? The new land has to be surveyed and make sure it's appropriate to add water to, right? It's not,
I got you.
You're not going to lose water. It's going to be productive land under irrigation. And then you add a cost to it. And I think the costs for water rights, so when you can irrigate, you get rights to water a certain area of land, and that stays attached in most cases to that piece of land. So it's highly competitive to kind of attain those irrigated acres because that's, like we talked about before, it's an opportunity to grow higher value crops. It's certainty, it's less risk. And so there's a lot to it. And so I think there is opportunity to expand acres.
Not simple though.
Yeah, exactly.
Not simple at all.
Yeah, it's not as simple as saying, okay, we've got a little extra water for this year. Let's, add,
new pivot over there.
Add some stuff over here, right? It has to be very forward thinking. Do we have the resources and can we sustainably, add this area of land and irrigate it? So your background's in geography.
Okay. So you're a land guy.
Yeah.
Where's your passion? Where's Lewis Baarda's passion?
Yeah, that's, I don't know. I think it's always evolving. I think honestly, it's maybe a cop-out answer, but my passion is curiosity. So my background is, geography. So I did a lot of mapping, GIS, if you're familiar with that. So that's kind of where I came from, did a master's degree there. I bounced around a little bit. And then when I ended up with Farming Smarter, they had a project focused on variable rate application of fertilizers. So the premise being, if you mapped your fields, getting information on various soil parameters, could you variably apply your fertilizer and achieve some efficiencies? So that was a perfect fit for my background. So that's how I got my foot in the door. And I still do some of that work and I still like that. But the more I learn about some of the other facets about agriculture, the more curious I am about those pieces. So which is nice. I don't feel pigeonholed into that one world. I like spending time there, but what drives me is anything new. Anytime we got a new project fired up or new ideas going, I get excited. So that's what keeps me coming to work every day, I guess.
Getting revved.
Yeah.
So if we think about very simplistically, three aspects, you've got soil, you've got seed, you've got water, right? Well, let's say four, and chemical, fertilizer, and everything else. where are you seeing the most change or the most innovation taking place right now? Like I know we have a relationship with Advanced Ag in Lethbridge, who are doing bugs and jugs and some really cool stuff on the biological side of things to increase soil health, right? Yeah. Where's the most innovation coming from right now?
Yeah, that's really tough to say. And it probably depends on how you define innovation. I think there's things happening in all those sectors. Like there's opportunity in water, but I think we are already quite efficient with how we use our water. So I think, there's definitely efficiencies to be gained, but I don't think it's the low hanging fruit.
Right.
I think on crop protection, crop inputs, there's a lot out there, but I think there's also a lot out there that may not provide value. So I think there's innovation happening, but I think there's so much out there and so much that I'm skeptical of the value of it as far as, biologicals or different products, which isn't to say there isn't things out there that work, but I think it's almost the Wild West. And I think we have to take sort of a pragmatic approach to saying, okay, what do we think is going to add the value? So if I were to pick something, I think it's in agronomy is sort of this, like, I guess it encompasses everything, but
it's a catch-all a little bit. Yeah.
But like, if I think some of the work that we've done, it's been, different equipment. So we've adapted planters, which are typically used for row crops, to use them for crops like canola and other things. And that's been more and more adopted, or different tillage practices. We're doing things, and we being the industry, we're doing things to protect our soil from erosion, like more cover crops, especially with the high disturbance crops like potatoes and sugar beets that get dug up. Yeah. High disturbance, they're pulled out of the ground late in the season. There's not a lot of runway left to provide cover. So we're kind of, it doesn't seem like a big thing, it's not this really sexy technology innovation, but it's making a big difference for protecting our soil. We've got 6 to 8 inches of it, and it's going to take however many years to get another 6 to 8 inches, right?
Yeah,
so
and I think the last few days we've been giving some of it over to Saskatchewan, right?
For sure,
But you are right. We are in that mode right now. I was just on the highway, and you and I were kind of in the same area there. You're seeing the big piles of sugar beets starting to show up, getting ready to be brought over to Rogers, and you're seeing the potatoes, and all you see is dust, right? And it hurts my heart a little bit, because there is only 6 to 8 inches of this, and soil protection and soil erosion is such an important aspect. So no tillage is one, but what do you do on a crop like sugar beets, potatoes, or some of those high till?
Yeah, I think we're seeing more and more folks like finding, so crop rotation can help, right? So if you've got your crop out early enough and you can plant a winter crop, so a winter wheat, a fall rye or something, and harvest that the next year, that's kind of a nice solution. It doesn't add extra work because that's your crop next year. So you can kind of...
I'm going to stop you right there. For the idiot farmer, which you're sitting across from. Yeah. And I've had this talk with other people. Okay, so when we say crop rotation, so you would harvest potatoes, sugar beets in the fall, where we are right now in October. You then plant a winter wheat. You hopefully get some of that growth in the fall.
Yes.
Correct? Yeah. And that would be your harvest for 2026.
That's correct. So a winter crop, it grows, you plant it in the fall, and it grows a certain amount in the fall, and then it goes into a vernalization or a dormancy period over the winter, with still like having plant material out of the ground, roots in the ground that hold that soil in place. The plant material above the ground kind of mitigates the wind effects.
Sure, absolutely.
And then next spring, you don't have to seed it. It starts growing on its own and becomes your crop for the next year, and it'll harvest a little earlier than spring seeded crops. So, and we can use that as a primary crop, or sometimes farmers will just put very, very low seeding rates just to have enough to kind of grow over the winter to protect against erosion. So often, especially in the last 5 years, we're seeing more and more potato fields, especially potato. Sugar beets are hard. They're still going now. And
they go
there's
almost
not a lot
freeze,
of runway.
right?
To, pretty much. There's not a lot of runway to do something there, but we're looking at things, and we actually tried some inter-row seeding of cover crops in sugar beets a couple of years ago. So we would, in June, plant different crops between the rows of sugar beets, thinking, okay, if they grow a little bit, then they get choked out by the beets. When we harvest the beets, are they still there to protect. And I mean, spoiler alert, didn't really work. There wasn't really a silver bullet there.
Didn't go so well.
But it was, I think, a worthwhile idea. And
well, you don't know if you don't try,
that's right? You have to try things that don't turn out the way you'd like, and then you move on to the next thing, right? So
yeah, for sure. So on that potato, then you would seed in would they sometimes just do a light so they can go back to potatoes in the spring?
Yeah, typically you want a number of years. So when we talk crop rotation, if you grow potatoes this year, you want 3 or 4 years in between growing potatoes, because all those pathogens that will affect potatoes, they can live in the soil for 3 years kind of thing, right? Wow. So then if you want to, so that's why crop rotations are so important. You want to rotate to different kinds of crops that are susceptible to different pathogens, diseases, insects, so that by the time you grow potatoes again 4 years later, that's all cleansed from the soil and gone, and your risk for disease is much lower. You're going to have healthier crops, use less chemicals to protect them because you've got a healthy rotation. So then when we talk about, international market pressures affecting our crop rotation that's planned, that's where things kind of get complicated, because you have this whole system of what we would call cultural practices. So just practices in the way you farm that dampen your insect pressure, disease pressure, and reduce your need for chemicals. But that can kind of get thrown off balance.
Economies changes. Of the world.
Yeah, all these kind of other things impact things on just a visceral level, where you're just like, I'd rather just do, potato, wheat, canola, barley, potato,
So a potato farmer isn't just a potato farmer. Can we safely say that?
100%. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. See, and I never knew that, actually. Yeah. I've known a bunch of potato farmers.
Yeah.
I just thought they always grew potatoes.
Yeah. Potatoes it's the biggest investment to get into. You have storage, you've got specialized equipment that can't be used for other crops. So it's very expensive to do, but it's also very profitable. So, but you also have to farm all your other crops around it so that your potatoes can shine, so that you can do a good job on that focus crop, that specialty crop.
So you would have to be a big farmer to be farming potatoes, right? Like, you need some serious land. And for those that don't know, potato farming is very big down here. We have McCain's, we have Lamb Weston, we have Cavendish now. They moved into Lethbridge not that long ago. So, and I'm sure that also provides those economic pressures where you have those large manufacturers, if you want to call it, where they want the potatoes, right? They probably don't care if your soil is overly healthy or anything, to a point. I suppose they do.
Well, they've got a vested interest in being productive and again, sustainable in the sense that they want to be able to reliably produce the same amount of potatoes that meet their specifications year after year, right?
Yeah.
So, that's a really good example of how market pressures or external pressures change the way we farm in some ways, because we've had appreciable growth. I think like 40% growth in potato production in the last dozen years, kind of thing. Cavendish is new to the area. McCain's is expanding. So there's more and more potato growers, more farmers getting into it, which means it's putting more pressure on our land base. And I couldn't sit here and tell you that what the point at which it's too much. I mean, I think there's space for expansion, but the tighter your rotation gets, your risk of disease gets
risk
amplified.
Goes up.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So I think we have to be on top of things in the research world and in connection to the industry to kind of, look 10 years down the road and say, what's the point at which we have too many, and how do we mitigate the risks that come with, a little more pressure on the system on soils and in terms of tight rotations, or I shouldn't say tight, but tighter rotations and more disease pressure and other things like that, right? So, yeah.
Crazy. One of the things you had talked about earlier was some of your partners at Farming Smarter. So you obviously public grants, you've got private industry, you've got farm partners. What does that look like in your world where, this is, if it isn't for those relationships, you don't exist.
Yeah.
Right. And, one of the things you had said to me was that grants can be very difficult, right? And you've started to lean more heavily on the private donors, private industry as a way of really being able to do fun and exciting things. So what does that support look like? Because that's got to be a hard space to work in.
Yeah. Yeah, it is tough. I think, grants have been our lifeblood for a long time.
Yeah.
And there are a lot of good organizations that prioritize or even focus on agriculture research. And we've done a lot of good work with some of the grants. And I think what can be tough, and Yeah. I want to be, I guess, a little bit delicate how how I come across with it.
Sure.
But if you're running a grant, you're appealing to a lot of bases, right? So you might, if something is provincially funded, I think the funder has a vested interest in seeing that money help everybody in the province. And what we have here in Southern Alberta is a bit of a specialized agriculture system. So the kind of research we do, the kind of needs we have, the kind of things that might benefit our farmers might not resonate with somebody in Vermilion or in, Falher in Northern Alberta. So it does kind of limit our options sometimes. And that's where sometimes having these philanthropic groups it has been really nice, because they see the value in something that we bring to them, and they'll say, yeah, like, we believe it. We trust you as the expert. We don't know agriculture, but we're excited about the opportunities. So we're going to let you take the lead, and, we'll bring in different accountability measures, scientists or experts to kind of, make sure everything makes sense just for their certainty. And that's been nice. And the other thing that's kind of been nice about the philanthropic groups is they give us a little more flexibility. So often on the grant side, and I think it's good because you lock into a protocol, you see it through to the end, and you've got something that's scientific and valid, publishable, and you have some certainty with it. But sometimes you get into something, so the soil erosion piece has been one where we've tried a lot of different things, all sorts of different ideas, and because we've got some philanthropic support that's flexible, like, that gives us space to say, okay, we're going to try these 12 different things in different contexts. And after a year or two, we learn, hey, this inter-row cropping in sugar beets is probably not the home run we hoped it would be. Yeah. So let's pivot and let's look at something else, right? So it's a tough world to be in because you never really know where support's going to come from year to year. Yeah. Farming Smarter's fortunate, and it's because of the work we've done, but we've got relationships with a lot of companies, and that private side keeps the wheels turning. It's actually a lot more dependable than the granting, but the granting gives us space to take risks and do those innovative things sometimes that nobody else really has the stomach for. Yeah, well, and the relationships, that's with anything, right? And I think probably you guys have been around long enough, and the proof is in the pudding, right? There's been great stuff come out of Farming Smarter, so you get people that start wanting to support you even more. What do you see as the next frontier of farming in even if we just say in Southern Alberta? Yeah, that's interesting. I don't know. Like I think there's some opportunity in sort of the technology side, but I'm aware that technology has given us a lot of promises and not a lot of follow through. I think about precision ag, and I think there's some clear wins, but I think there's some places where, 10 years ago, I thought, we thought it was going to change the way we farm in a way that it hasn't really come to fruition. What is precision ag? So precision agriculture would be sort of big data and its integration with agriculture. So things like we've got yield mapping and we've got auto steer. So we're using, the spatial, we can map our fields and understand what's happening, and we can respond on a very precise level, acre by acre. This is what the soil needs. This is what we're going to apply, and it's going to be more efficient, more profitable, more productive. And I think the value of it, in my opinion, has been muted compared to the promise. So I am a little skeptical of the value of the sort of the big data AI side of things, but I also see places where, man, there's some real opportunity. But honestly, I think the real opportunity in ag probably over the next 10 years, 15, 20 years is new markets and new crops and different ways of doing things. I think and I don't know what that's going to look like. There's vegetables grown here in greenhouses and stuff. Sure. Can we do more of that outside, more high value crops? We tried growing rice a couple of times. It didn't pan out, but it's we're trying things. But you don't know if you don't try, right? Yeah, absolutely. And sometimes things change on a dime. A new crop shows up or a new opportunity, and makes waves and gives farmers more crop rotation options. And so, yeah. What, you don't play in the greenhouse end, right? No, you're all outdoor farming. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, for sure. So if you could wave your magic wand, your farming magic wand,
What would you want to see as the biggest thing to accelerate innovation and change in the agriculture industry right now?
Yeah.
What would make the most impact?
Yeah, as far as a particular technology or product or something.
Yeah.
Yeah. One of our big risks right now, so you'd ask me about projects I'm excited about. We're doing some work with kochia. Kochia's a pretty noxious weed. It's probably one of the biggest threats to farming on the prairies. And I don't think I'm exaggerating.
And dry land seeding, to be honest. Obviously in the landscaping side, we do a lot of dry land seeding, and kochia is it is the bane of our existence. Yeah.
So one of the reasons kochia is so difficult is it's highly adaptive. Like it's got genetically diverse seeds. So when you take a certain approach to deal with it, you only kill a certain portion of that population, but then you have survivors. And because of that, we have resistance to a number of our major chemical groups that we use to deal with kochia, and it's getting harder and harder to control. So if I could wave my magic wand, I'd say, hey, we've got a solution to this threat. So this isn't maybe a new way of farming, but it's like there's threats coming in, and there's things that are threatening the tools that we're using to be sustainable in the way we farm. And I'd love to magic wand kochia.
You and me both. Trust me. I know. Whenever we have to treat kochia in a grass setting, it's the guy says I got to apply a chemical at such a high rate. It's probably going to nuke everything. It's just such a brutal weed.
And we're still getting resistance to more chemical options, and it's tough. I don't know what the problem is, but I know kind of what the problem is. I don't know what the solution is, but driving around, I mean, you probably see it too all the time, everywhere. It's everywhere. So
it is. Yeah. And the thing I like about what you said, it said right there was, I know what the problem is. I don't know what the solution is. That's great. That's why you're in business.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, exactly.
So, Lewis, one thing that is important to me in this podcast is we're sitting down with people that have a strong purpose towards what they're working in, right? Can you just tell us a little bit about why you do this? Like, it's one thing to say, X number of years ago you start working with Farming Smarter, and that's been, I think you said, about 8 years, somewhere in there. But why are you doing this?
Yeah, that's a good, real soul searching question. Yeah.
Well, I don't think people get into, I view agriculture, horticulture all the same. Yeah. Which is people that are in it have a passion for it typically, right? Like, it's typically not an industry that's going to make a whole lot of people very rich. But the people that do it, it's the green thumb. Right. Yeah. But didn't mean to cut you off there, but it's a passionate industry as a whole.
Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of things I love about it. Maybe this isn't an agriculture per se answer, but I like that the work I do makes an impact and that I can see where it goes. So if I do a research project or I work with a farmer on something, like I can see that through to the end. If we work on some project or some technology, or we're dealing with kochia, I get farmers calling me all the time to say, hey, like I heard you're doing this project. What's happening? What do you think I should try? Like, that's very rewarding to me, is to know that I'm doing work and it's not getting stored on a shelf somewhere and vanishing, right? It's going to this industry where it's being used and being appreciated by people that it's making a difference, right? So that's really, really one piece of it. Yeah. And I think another is I mentioned before, I'm curious. I love asking questions. I love being in that space of, what can we do? What can we try? And I love being able to reach into that community of growers and stakeholders around me to kind of, workshop ideas and figure out what's going to make sense. And that includes my colleagues at Farming Smarter, right? Just so many smart, high functioning people that you learn every day, no matter what's happening. And that's also really rewarding. So,
I know we were just saying earlier, we just try to walk in the room and not be the dumbest person on any given day. Right. And it's still, I'm sure, when you get, farmers are considered salt of the earth, right? The just good all around quality people. And I'm sure just getting in touch with them, smelling the dirt or the manure and picture beauty. That probably it's gives you a really good feeling of the work you're doing, making a significant impact, I'm sure. So that's awesome. So with Farming Smarter, The way I found out about you, and this was kind of odd, was just this random publication that you guys had mailed out, showed up in my mailbox, and it showed up on my counter over here. And I was walking by one day and I saw an irrigation pivot and I flipped it open and read this article, and I'm like, I got to meet Lewis.
Yeah.
Or I got to go see Farming Smarter.
Yeah.
That was the first time I got to meet you coming back from Lethbridge the one day. But take a couple of minutes. Like, how can people find you?
Yeah.
Where do you want them to find you? And how can we help you grow your influence?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Good question. Depending on who people are, they can reach out to us in different ways. So if you want to just know who we are and what we're doing, like, check out our website, farmingsmarter.com. Yeah, we've got a magazine we put out twice a year. All the research we do, it's all on our website. It all goes on YouTube. We put together all sorts of little short plot shot videos, we call them.
You've got great YouTube videos, for the record.
There's a lot, and there's probably hundreds of videos out there by now, and it's all little updates on what we're doing. So if you want to know what we're up to and you want to stay connected to a project or one of the researchers and what they're working on, YouTube, Twitter, social media, all that kind of stuff. And if you want to, work with us, I mean, that's what we really need, We have different ideas or different projects, but sometimes to get things off the ground, we need a bit of a community approach to that. So we need the stakeholders to connect with us and to let us know, what it is we should be focusing on, what kind of research should we be doing, and how are you willing to come and partner with us on that. So that's another big thing. We talked a little bit about community before we got in here, and that's how we succeed, is to work together. We're not just a silo. We don't just kind of do our own thing. There's all sorts of grower groups and farmers and folks on the industry side providing whatever farmers need to get their jobs done. I think we need to bring all the right people to the table and say, hey, we've got a problem with kochia, and here we think we have a solution. So let's, get together and
let's put more than one brain together. Let's put a group of brains together.
That's right. Yeah. So we need support, and we need the public to let government know that agriculture is a priority and that we need to continue to research, and we need to, make sure our support for agriculture doesn't wane, because like we said, we've got 6-8 inches of soil, and we've got to protect that and make sure we've got a viable industry and opportunity for young people to have jobs and all these kind of things. So if you're interested and passionate about agriculture, let your MP and MLA and all that stuff know about it. Yeah.
Interesting. You actually just touched on one thing. There was a very cool thing that just came out this past week here in Medicine Hat, which was young people. And I don't know if you had heard yet, and I don't want to get this wrong entirely, but the Ewell Family Foundation, I think, they have actually just partnered with Prairie Grove School Division. Okay. And they're actually creating an agriculture school at the high school level.
Oh, very cool.
Yeah, it is. It's super cool. So, the Eagle Butte High School out here has a bunch of different programs, whether it's firefighting, aviation, and now agriculture is becoming a part of that. So, it just got announced last week. Really, really cool thing. But, this may be something down the road where, when we start to train these high school young men and women in this industry, what better way, again, when we can start working together and collaborating on what some of that cool stuff is happening out there. So keep an eye out for that.
Yeah, that sounds really cool.
Yeah, and if I find any information on it, I'll be sure to kick it your way too.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Yeah. Lewis, I want to thank you for coming in today. It is a lot of fun. I know we've only talked a few times, but I learned a little bit today, which was really exciting, in particular that a potato farmer is not just a potato farmer. But yeah, I really appreciate it. It's fun to sit down with people that have such passion in an area maybe a lot of people don't really know about, and we can, do what we can to bring that message out there.
Yeah, I'm super happy to be here. This is really fun. Yeah, love talking about the things I'm excited about. So thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, and now go enjoy some time off.
Yeah,
winter's here.
Yeah, perfect.
All right, have a good one.
Yeah, awesome. Thank you.